What the fuck is going on, everybody? As always, I'll start with the land acknowledgement. I'm recording this here on occupied Taiba territory, otherwise known as Albuquerque, New Mexico. Together, let us continue this struggle and fight for black and indigenous liberation. As you know, backed by unpopular demand, back in Black Action Zachariah Jazz, your host, and this is It's Controversial. So I have a really juicy, super controversial topic to talk to y'all about today, and I'm sure y'all already know what I'm going to talk about because it's in the title. Today's webinar panel by the New Mexico PED administrative hearing, I believe it was called, administrative rule hearing. Yes, about, the social studies curriculum, academia, and other policies that will be involved. I don't know all the ins and outs, so I won't try to explain it all. I won't get into that, but it's all, you can look it all up. It's probably on CABQ or whatever, one ABQ, whatever. But I want to talk about the more pressing issue that was highlighted in this, that is still being highlighted in this webinar as I'm recording this now. And that is the counter narrative for things like critical race theory, which isn't even like defined in curriculum. There's no such critical race theory curriculum. So let's talk about the hypocrisy of that, which I shouldn't have to, but I'm going to anyway for my sanity's sake, because this is a very important topic to me, as it should be for a lot of people. And I guess it is, but for various different reasons, right? So the first contradiction to this is that these people who oppose critical race theory have no qualms, have no problems with talking about and promoting settler colonialism and the things that the so-called achievements that white settlers, colonial settlers, achieved, right? But they don't talk about the genocide, the slavery, the subjugation, oppression of people they deem less than. They always want to talk about, it was white people that, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. They want to talk about this, that, and the other. So let me talk about the 13th Amendment. I have this article right here. It is from ourdocuments.gov. The 13th Amendment, which formally abolished slavery in the United States, passed the Senate on April 8th, 1864, and the House on January 31st, 1865. On February 1st, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln approved the joint resolution of Congress submitting the proposed amendment to the state legislatures. The necessary number of states ratified it by December 6, 1865. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. In 1863, President Lincoln had issued the Emancipation Proclamation declaring all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then thenceforward and forever free. Nonetheless, the Emancipation Proclamation did not end slavery in the nation. Lincoln recognized that the Emancipation Proclamation would have to be followed by a constitutional amendment in order to guarantee the abolishment of slavery. The 13th Amendment was passed at the end of the Civil War, before the Southern states had been restored to the Union, and should have easily passed a Congress. Although the Senate passed it in 1864, the House did not. At that point, Lincoln took an active role to ensure passage through Congress. He insisted that passage of the 13th Amendment be added to the Republican Party platform for the upcoming presidential elections. His efforts met with success when the House passed the bill in January 1865 with a vote of 119 to 56. With the adoption of the 13th Amendment, the United States found a final constitutional solution to the issue of slavery. The 13th Amendment, along with the 14th and 15th, is one of the trios of Civil War amendments that greatly expanded the civil rights of Americans, but it didn't. It It says it right here. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime. So, I've been over this before, but I'm going to go over it again, right? Just because they abolished slavery doesn't mean that they abolished racism. It doesn't mean that they abolished white supremacy. Just because they didn't own these people by title anymore, by, whatever, supremacy, whatever the hell you want to call it. Just because they abolished slavery didn't mean that they got rid of white supremacy or racism. Only they transformed it. What they did is, at any time black people within the community gained any wealth, gained any station, gained any power, they were torn down, ripped from it, their communities burned, like Tulsa Massacre, which the centennial for that just passed, all these things to rip down the black community, force them into segregated areas of the community, then push, they ran their posses, their lynch mobs, the KKK, their militias formed to control the black population, which became the police. Then over-police these communities, harass them, terrorize them, and then when the black communities start to create community defense, that's when they flooded the black community with drugs and guns and killed or ran off their revolutionary leaders. Fred Hampton, Huey P. Newton, people like that. And it's all there, it's in context, and that's what things like critical race theory would teach. But these white people that are opposed to it are afraid of that. They're afraid of the changing narrative of their power structures that they've took generations to build and are still building, right? Every time they go and spread freedom somewhere, they're so afraid of that being toppled and taken down off of that ivory tower. They're afraid of it. They're terrified. They always have been, of black people specifically. They've always been afraid of us. So what did they do? They terrorized us and made us believe that we are the problem. So we grow up with this self-hatred and an inability to want to strive and do better by popular margins, right? And struck down any revolutionary acts to do that. It's all there. Revolutionaries have been talking about it forever, for decades. So this whole pushback against critical race theory, and it's all comes from this supremacist ideology, this nationalist ideology of this so-called replacement theory, that the Jews are that Jewish people are controlling, right, by pushing immigrants into the communities to come take your wives and come take your resources, to come take your jobs and flood your communities, and we see it. We push back against Haitian immigrants on at the Texas border. Those officers rounding them up with like lassos, and the dehumanization of these people because they're so afraid. And these Christo evangelist fascists, they push it in their church. And these people, all over the country are taking over school boards. Just recently, in the November 2nd election, what was it? Two school board seats flipped, or was that the two city council? Either way, that is cause for concern, because we know that policies change at the ground. The White House can pass whatever they want, but it's up to the state to pass it within the state. Like House Bill 4, ridding qualified immunity. That didn't pass in a lot of other states, but it recently passed here. So when these people that hold these oppressive ideologies, these supremacist and nationalist evangelical narratives and agendas, when they start to take over these small positions, they start to build a foundation, a groundwork, a entire system that they can control and dictate, and otherwise perpetuate their supremacist ideologies. And it's dangerous. They're terrified. So on this webinar, conservative Republican white ringer out of Otero County, John Block, had something to say, and it's an embodiment of everything that these psychos believe. These extremists that we know are ready and willing to do anything to uphold their patriotic freedoms, their constitutional rights. And these people talk about the Constitution like it's some freedom document that warrants everybody their freedom. But when the Constitution was written, black people were still slaves. It was not intended for us. It wasn't. Now people like to say, well, what about, the Irish? They were slaves too. A lot of people were slaves. A lot of people were. But their economies weren't built off of slavery in other places like it was here. Our very beginnings in this country were founded on racism. It was the economic power. It was the dollar. It was what fueled it. Slavery was the economy. And when it was abolished, they needed to find something else, the industrial prison complex. But back to John Block. I grabbed some screenshots from the transcript of his little crazy fascist rhetoric here. Good afternoon. My name is John Block, I'm a resident development something. It says Gordo. I'm a native New Mexican born, raised and educated in New Mexico through a public school system and a graduate of Eastern New Mexico University. On behalf of so many people in my community in Otero County and across our state, I want to rise in opposition to the PED social studies standards proposed and set forth by the Lujan Grisham administration. These policies are chock full of racist, anti-police, anti-gun, anti-conservative, anti-Hispanic, and anti-American sentiments, while only mentioning the Constitution to claim it as a bigoted document full of so-called inequities these proposed standards encompass. So I'm gonna pause on that real quick. I've said this, I don't know how many times, and I'm gonna keep saying it until I no longer have to. Racism is a power structure created by white people, because it is an economic system with one section of society, one group holding dominion over everybody else beneath it. They control the means, the production. They control the agriculture. They control the economic, system. They control it. They can dictate and just do whatever the hell they want to. Now, black people never holding power or dominion over anybody else ever in history other than themselves before settler colonials came and enslaved them. Never holding power over any other such section of the world population cannot be racist. They can't do it. It's impossible, because it is a power structure. Now, when something is done to benefit black people, which is hardly ever, when something is done to benefit black people, it is going to benefit everybody above us in this power structure, because we all know trickle-down economics don't work. It doesn't exist. But trickle-up economics is very real, because everything always goes up, because the poorer get poorer and the richer get richer. But anything to help us will help everybody, because why wouldn't it? And we wouldn't want it any other way. So the fact that these people can continue this desperation to be victimized and want to claim racism against them is lunacy. It is... I lost my train of thought. I got focused by something else. But I feel like you know what I'm trying to get at. So let me get back to this. These policies are chock full of racist, anti-police, anti-gun, anti-conservative, and anti-Hispanic and anti-American sentiments, while only mentioning the Constitution to claim it as a bigoted document full of so-called inequities these proposed standards encompass. Critical race theory, a racist and indoctrination technique that forces students to use race as a determining factor on the supposed privilege they hold in society and how they are inherently either a racist oppressor or a subservient victim. That's not what it is. This is to say us pointing the finger at you and saying you're the problem. You're what's wrong. And this whole thing only came from when we started hitting the streets saying Black Lives Matter. There was never an issue until somebody came out and started saying no, all lives matter. But we never disagreed with that. We only said that not all Black Lives Matter, or not all lives matter to everybody, or Black lives don't matter to everybody. And we're saying Black Lives Matter too. Not only Black Lives Matter. Because like I said, it's a power structure, right? Something that benefits us is going to benefit everybody else above us in this power structure. So there was never a divide until people started with their racist ideologies, started coming out and telling us no, Black lives don't matter, all lives matter. But we all know that's not true. And for these people to come and tell us that what we're seeing and what we know to be true and what we felt and what we've seen is not true, and that privilege doesn't exist, is in and of itself a privilege. To be able to deny that so blatantly is a privilege. Because I've made a video on this before, when it was a white person attacking a police officer, beating him and his partner, a female partner, with their own billy clubs, and then stealing their vehicle, and then living to tell the story. But then you have people like Philando Castile, who legally owned a firearm, had his hands up, told the police officers in a routine traffic stop, said, "I have a firearm on me." What did they do? They killed him. What about Trayvon Martin? And how George Zimmerman got away with that, even though he murdered Trayvon Martin over a fake gun. Or was that one the piece of candy? I can't even remember. There's so many of them. Or how Jacob Blake allegedly was reaching for a knife and then shot in the back by a cop 7 times. But then you have Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha running down the street with an AR-15 after just killing 2 people and injuring another. Cop said, "Hey dude, what's up? You thirsty?" They heard those gunshots. Shit, I heard those fucking gunshots. So to tell me that privilege doesn't exist, it is probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And black people who would oppose things such as critical race theory and the teaching of legitimate history in school is a tragedy. I mean, I have some other words for that, but somebody might call me a racist, even though, I can't be racist, especially not to my own people. But it's definitely their terms that black people use for black people that are doing the white man's work. The head house slaves, the ones who are always in their master's pocket, following them around everywhere, always doing what they wanted them to do, oppressing their own people, being used as tools against us. Black cops always selling out for the white cops, like Ice Cube said. Anyway, let me get back to John Block. This is racism. So to those who are erroneous, the claim that CRT does not exist in these standards, I point to you a passage in the proposed standards which read that the students must assess how social policies and economic forces offer privilege or systemic inequity to access social, political, and economic opportunity. This is CRT and this is racist. I also take great exception to the proposals having students compare the patterns of exploration, destruction, and to occupation in the Americas by Spaniards. This is a direct attack on Hispanics in New Mexico, and it is blatantly racist. He says that while ignoring what Oñate represented and who Oñate even was. A genocidal maniac who was banished by his own people, who lavished in the genocide of the indigenous population. And he cannot say that. Couldn't say it because it would go against his narrative. Let's see. This is CRT and this is racist. I also take great exception to the proposals having students compare the patterns of exploration, destruction, and to occupation in the Americas by Spaniards. This is a direct attack on Hispanics in New Mexico, and it is blatantly racist. Hispanics are already under attack by our heritage being stripped, and our monuments being toppled by radical terrorists among us. But I wonder what his opinion is about the people who attacked the country's Capitol building on January 6th, and about the damn near armed insurrection at, Michigan State Capitol before that. And so these standards not only teach children false information, such as that the United States, as a constitutional democracy, no, we are a republic. It encourages fake news. Sorry, the transcript doesn't, completely get to what exactly he was saying. Could have been mumbling or something. So the Michelle Lujan Grisham administration has been slapping concerned parents and citizens in the face with how morale is saying that we are a noisy minority and a recent opposite and demoralized. Let's see. And demoralizing us and trying to erase our lived experiences. So I urge this panel and everybody to oppose these racist standards that hurt and malign Hispanics and whites and other people in this community and in this state who have built a great state. And we must look to all of our lived experience, not just those that are formed in a classroom or some kind of academic elitist oligarchies. So thank you all so much for listening to me, and I appreciate you. We must look to all of our lived experiences. What lived experiences do you have of being oppressed or being victimized by another section of society? An honest answer, and I genuinely want to know. I'll wait. It's okay. Because you can't tell me. Right? What? Oh, mask mandates? Stay-at-home orders, getting vaccinated, which is not even really to any worrisome extent mandated here. First responders just got to pass on that. I mean, what else do you want? What are you so oppressed because you can't have your fascist barbecues? You couldn't have them for like a year or something? But that didn't really work, huh? Because you guys are still doing whatever the hell you wanted anyway. Do you want to know what it feels like to be black? I don't think you would trade me positions. I don't think you would. Would you trade how cops treat you and look at you versus how they would treat me and look at me? Would you trade what Kyle Rittenhouse got to go through versus what Philando Castillo went through? Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Emmett Till, Eric Garner, Mike Brown. The list goes on. I can keep going. I mean, his statement is full of elitism, and it is full of a toxicity that is dangerous to our community, that is a danger and a threat to everybody who has been victimized by white supremacy and police and state violence. Because I know for a fact that there is 421 officers who would agree with what he just said. I have no doubt in my mind. Malcolm X, he was talking about white people when he was during the speech, and he said, "We don't hate anybody. We love our own people so much that they think we hate those who would do harm upon them." I don't hate nobody. I hate that hate in those people, the hate that they have for me. That's what I hate. And I hate every word that advocates for it, that perpetuates it, that promotes it, that spreads it, that indoctrinates people with it, that prevents people from listening, that prevents people from understanding, the people that makes people look me in my eye and tell me that my reality isn't real, that what I see and what I feel as oppression and supremacy doesn't exist. You know, there's this anti-racist skinhead organizer from back in the day. He was saying, you know, if it wasn't for right-wing working class people, we could probably have, like, you know, a successful revolution or something along those lines. And until they realize that these systems don't give a fuck about them too, until they realize that we can never really have a successful revolution. And I think people like Fred Hampton knew this. You know, that's why he started, you know, the Rainbow Coalition, because it's as any real revolutionary movement should definitely be, you know, led by Black and Indigenous organizers. You know, it's gonna take all of us together in one solid movement to even make a difference, to even attempt to make a difference. Even in failure, that is making a difference. That's going to have an impact. It's going to have a ripple effect that will cause a change maybe sometime long after I'm gone. But it's imperative that we do something now. Because, I mean, I don't have a watch. It's about skin 30, but that clock is winding down. And this is why, like, I continue to do what I do, and why I won't stop, because of people like John Block. But I've kept you here long enough. I'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your night. Have a good weekend. If you would like to support my work, here is my Cash App and my PayPal. So I love you all, and uhuru.